Hey guys, returning back for another video, and today is a very exciting video because we're checking out the NiceHCK DB3. And actually from the title of this video, it says this caught me by surprise because it did really caught me by surprise. So this is kind of my third earphone from NiceHCK that I'm reviewing, and usually I don't really like their stuff, but this one is different. So we're gonna find out why in this video. So we're gonna take a look at the box first. So in the box, you see that it has two colors. I do have the silver color. It says DB3 in-ear earphone. At the other side, you have 0.7 to 8 2-pin connector, 3.5mm jack, 16 ohm impedance, also 20 to 22K in terms of frequency range. And this is also a hybrid setup, 1BA plus 10mm coaxial dual dynamic graphene drivers. So I'm usually a fan of graphene drivers here in this channel, so that is one thing that caught me by surprise, definitely, especially coming from a $19 earphone. This is very cheap. Right, so of course in the box you get the IEM, which is what we're gonna take a look at later. So actually pretty like similar to KZ packaging altogether. You actually have a pouch with this, you know, for $19. Wow. Also additional tips, and of course you get the IEM itself. So actually the cable is in the kind of grayish brown, which is something I actually prefer over, you know, the brown cable from KZ. In terms of looks, this is just okay for me. You know, this is not the best looking pair. It has some metal at the face plate, also some plastic at this side, and also this is pretty deep on the ear. This is similar in terms of the shape compared to the KZ ZSN Pro. So I'm pretty sure they're kind of targeting the KZ ZSN Pro in this release. Of course, you do get the tips. You do get pre-forked ear hooks, which is nice, and also a pretty small L plug at the bottom. And also you do have that organizer in the cable. So of course, this I would say typical, you know, Chi-Fi, under $20 Chi-Fi. Nothing to write home about. In terms of fit on the ear, this is actually a very nice fit. This is very similar to the KZ ZSN Pro fit. So it's actually pretty comfortable on the ear. It fits right smack in my ear, and it's not also suffocating feeling. There's still breathability around the ear. So I can see me wearing this for a long listening session without any issues. So comfort is really good. Stability is also very good here. It seals really well, and because it has some ear hooks, this is very stable on the ears. So even if you're walking outside, this won't have any issues whatsoever. In terms of isolation, it's just all right for me. Not super duper isolating. Maybe you can put you know, better sealing tips, but it's not, you know, super duper isolating. Right now, let's proceed to the sounds. Actually, the first time that I listened to this, I was really surprised by the sound that I'm getting from it. I actually didn't believe that it's coming from, you know, NiceHCK. And when I checked, it's a very nice setup here because yeah, 1BA and also graphene drivers at the bottom. And when you look at the graphs here, it's actually you know, not super duper recessed mids. It's kind of a slight U-shape, but not super duper recessed mids, which is something really awesome. It's kind of actually fairly neutral. It's not, you know, super duper recessed. So in terms of signature, I do like the signature here. Usually under $20. This is not a signature that you're gonna get for that kind of price range. So it's a mix of dry and smooth sound. It's kind of in the middle, which is something I really like. I do like, you know, that kind of versatility that you can use it for still some monitoring, and also of course some relaxed or casual listening. It's also rich sounding overall. There's a good detail across the range. And of course, that mids is forward in a mix and also revealing mids. It's not laid back mids here in the DB3. So overall, again, I can't believe that I'm saying that for a NiceHCK earphone. So let's detail it a bit more. So the key highlight here is this has a kind of a fairly neutral signature, slight U-shape. Mids are forward in the mix. Rich sounding across the range, also good body across the range. No peakiness here, so one of the key strengths, especially in that kind of price range. No peaky highs here, and what you see with the other Chi-Fis. It also has some micro detail because of, again, that kind of graphene drivers at the bottom, and also BA at the top. So overall, this kind of reminds me of the Blon, but it's differently tuned compared to the Blon. But the first time I heard this, it did remind me of the Blon. But this has more toned down highs and also less boomy bass in general. So in terms of the highs, highs have some shimmer, and also well extended. Definitely has some brightness to it, but it's not the most bright earphone that I have heard. This only has some slight sibilance, definitely not, you know, super duper extended. Very well controlled highs here. So compared to the ZSNs, these are definitely more toned down. Even compared to the Blons, this is more toned down. So actually for treble sensitive people, you can survive with the DB3. So for me personally, I actually like the highs here more over the KZSN Pro, because the KZSN Pro, while it's extended, it has some peakiness. This is kind of a more natural highs. The cymbals here sound good. So I do like the highs here more. This gets high marks for me in terms of the highs. In terms of mids, the mids are thick and rich. Nicely layered mids also. Of course, not the thickest mids that I've heard, but definitely in the thick side. The mids are also revealing and not laid back, so there's good detail in the mids. So the vocals will sound really good here, clear. Even the male vocals sound clear. That's the usual issue with the Chi-Fi here, especially in this price range. The mids is kind of laid back compared to the highs and bass. They're kind of just focusing on the highs and bass, but this one has very good mids. Bass is in the boomy side, but not overly boomy. This is well controlled. It's also not super duper forward in the mix, so you know, this is not a bass heavy earphone by any means. So this kind of a well-controlled bass altogether. It's also not a super duper punchy bass. It has a little bit of punch, but definitely less than the Blon, also less than the KZSN. So this controlled bass overall. So for bass heads, I would say you'll find this lacking. This is not something for you. But for me personally, I do like the bass here because yeah, well-controlled bass, and I can listen to, you know, my mids because I really love my mids, and I can listen to my mids here in the DB3. So bass still gets high marks for me because of that kind of well-controlled bass. It doesn't go super deep though because yeah, this is a bit more tamed bass here in the DB3. In terms of detail, this is not super bleeding in detail, but definitely the detail here is pretty good still. Again, BA and graphene driver setup resolves detail pretty well. The highs are good, the bass is good, well layered, and still has some micro detail. The mids are a bit lacking in terms of detail, but definitely still substantial. So overall, still very good detail across the range. In terms of stage, is actually above average. You know, not the most expensive, but definitely above average. In terms of imaging, this just all right. This is not, you know, something that you want to use for any mixing work. Separation is actually fairly good here because of the dry nature of the sound. Also above average stage. Not bad in terms of separation overall. So overall, this is a very impressive listen to me. I would say it kind of punches above its price range in terms of the sound. So definitely yes, good work here by NiceHCK, but that's compared to the other top guns here in this channel. So compared to the VE Bonus IE, they're both U-shaped. But the VE Bonus has a more natural sound, warmer and also punchier bass. Actually, a lot more punchy bass, and the VE Bonus also more extended on top. However, it's a little bit more laid back in the VE Bonus compared to the DB3. The DB3 has a more colored sound, but also more fun sound in the DB3. A better detail retrieval in the DB3. Bigger stage in the DB3. Faster response also in the DB3, and more micro detail in the DB3. A more controlled bass in the DB3. And also less bright on top. So overall, they have their pros and cons. I would say I like them both. If you prefer more punchy bass, more natural sound, go for the VE Bonus. If you prefer a more fun sound, more detail, mids forward in the mix, go for the DB3. So I would say I like them both. It will be up to you what you are gonna choose. So compared to the Blon 03, they're both a U-shaped, but the Blon mids are more recessed. Both have some micro detail, but it's a touch better still in the Blon. The Blon 03 is brighter, more punchy, lively sound, more punchy bass, more airy sound, more smooth sound. However, again, the Blon has more recessed mids compared to the DB3. The DB3 is a little bit more laid back compared to the Blon, less airy in the DB3, more relaxed. Bass is less boomy in the DB3, also more controlled. Mids are more forward in the DB3. The DB3 is also less bright compared to the Blon. So in this comparison, the Blon definitely, I would say, is still a more technically capable IEM. I still like the Blon over the DB3 overall, but actually maybe for some relaxed listening, the DB3 is something that I will pick up over the Blon sometimes because of the more controlled bass, and also mids forward in the mix, and also not too bright on top. So compared to our current top one, the ZSN Pro, so they're both U-shaped, but definitely the ZSN Pro mids are more recessed. compared to the DB3. The ZSN Pro is more shimmery, brighter, also airy on top. However, it has that peakiness in the ZSN Pro, which makes the highs a bit thin for me. So the bass is also more boomy in the ZSN Pro. So for bass heads, ZSN Pro is more boomy, more lively sound overall. The mids are more laid back, and actually a lot more laid back in the ZSN Pro. That is the weakness of the ZSN Pro. So the DB3 has more forward mids, better detailed mids, more controlled bass, better detailed overall across the range, more natural sound as well, and no peakiness in the DB3. So overall, because of the better mids and also no peakiness at the highs and also more controlled bass, I do like the DB3 more than the ZSN Pro, which makes it currently the top one here in this channel. Right, DB3, you know, for under $20, I would highly recommend it. Yes, it's our top one recommendation now in the channel. So if you're not a bass head and you kind of like the signature that I mentioned and I showed here, pick this up. This is now my top one recommendation under $20. Of course, if you like bass, maybe go for the ZSN Pro. Also, the Blon and the VE bonus is warmer compared to this one. So if you're a bass head, look for other IEMs. Those are pretty good. But overall, technically, this is now my top one pick. For $20, this is, I would say, very nice value. Would highly recommend it. Good job by NiceHCK. You caught me by surprise in this. I didn't expect you guys to be able to topple the ZSN Pro out of our top one list. And of course, I already did a sound test of this. If you want, you know, a side-by-side comparison with a ZSN Pro, I will link it down in the comments below. Check that one out to, you know, verify your purchase. So that is my review. Hopefully you learned something. Of course, if you did, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And have you heard of the DB3? What do you think of them, and what do you think of NiceHCK stuff in general? Let me know down in the comments below, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye.